The European Commission today said that all preparations for no deal had been completed, and last week in the statement the Parliamentary Under-Secretary for DEXU made clear that very good progress was being made on the UK front in preparation for no deal. So it's a bit surprising, Mr Speaker, to hear from the Prime Minister that Northern Ireland is unable to prepare properly because it hasn't got devolved government. Which areas of government activity present a problem, and when will they be resolved?
I say to my right honourable friend, it is the Northern Ireland Civil Service do not have the powers to take the necessary decisions that would be needed in a circumstance in which there was a no deal and the UK left the European Union with a no deal. Now, it is possible to address those issues, but that had not been done by the 29th of March. The question about the impact on Northern Ireland and where there was no devolved government was an important one. And I believe that it's absolutely right that the government took the view that it was not appropriate to allow that no deal to go ahead at a time when the powers were not in place to ensure proper exercise of the decision-making necessary in a no deal situation.
Mr. Nigel. Speaker, but just on that last point, the Prime Minister has known for some considerable time, and so has the House, that the 29th of March was the target date. So why hasn't appropriate preparations been made? Why do we need another 2 weeks? What's going to happen in another 2 weeks that couldn't have happened up to now? I mean, this is a fundamental lack of preparation, and the government's entirely responsible for that, if that's the case, because this is a new argument. I have to say, Mr Speaker, this is an entirely new argument that we're hearing for the first time as to why we need extension. But could I ask the Prime Minister, further to the question that the former Secretary of State for Northern Ireland raised, someone with great experience, having served, I think, 4 years in Northern Ireland, who raises the point that Leo Varadkar has made it clear that in terms of a no deal, that he is very confident there will be no border checks. Michel Barnier has said the same. Angela Merkel has said the same. She shakes her head, but that's what he said. That's what he said. So the reality is, Mr Speaker, that this backstop problem, which has been elevated, one has to ask, and I'd like the Prime Minister's views on this, why is it that the EU insists on this when, in the case of a no deal, it doesn't need to have any checks? And why is it that the Prime Minister ever agreed to this backstop in the first place, which is the thing that bedevils her agreement?
Can I say first of all to the right honourable gentleman that actually the issue of the positioning governments of Northern Ireland in a no-deal situation, it's not the first time that it's been raised today. It was raised by my right honourable friend, the DEFRA Secretary, in the debate on no deal, which took place nearly 2 weeks ago. In relation to the question of the border checks in Northern Ireland, I would simply say to the right honourable gentleman, a number of statements are made and have been made from individuals about the situation in relation to the border in Northern Ireland. What is also clear that actually when you look at the detail of what the European Union has said, they have not said, they've made clear that European Union law would need to be adhered to in any circumstance in which there was no deal. We ourselves have said, and the right honourable gentleman is aware of this, that we would ensure that we were moving towards a period of time, for a temporary period, because of the legal situation it could only be for a temporary period, of having minimal checks with exceptions. But the legal position is a different one in relation to the necessity to be able to have certain checks taking place. And the European Union has been clear that EU law would need to be applied in all of these circumstances.
Given that the deal that is on offer now is exactly the same as the deal that was on offer a week ago, why does the Prime Minister think that you, Mr Speaker, would allow it to be voted upon in this session?
Can I say to my honourable friend that I'm very clear of the strictures that the Speaker gave when he made his statement last week, and that were we to bring forward a further motion to this House, we would of course ensure that that further motion met with the requirements that the Speaker had made.
Joanna Cherry. Mr. Speaker, sometimes it's hard to believe what one hears in this House these days, but we have it written down in black and white here that the Prime Minister said this afternoon that she cannot commit to delivering the outcome of any votes held by this House. What's the point? Does she realise that this makes a mockery of parliamentary democracy? Yeah. And will she reconsider and commit to holding a binding vote to avoid a no-deal Brexit?
To the Honourable Lady, that it's a very simple position. An indicative vote is exactly that, an indicative vote. I'm sure members of this House cannot expect the government simply to give a blank cheque to any vote that was that came through. For example, the SNP position is that they would like to see this House voting to revoke Article 50. This government's position is that we should deliver on the referendum result that took place in 2016 and deliver Brexit.
Mark Francois.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, you have told us in the dispatch box on 108 separate occasions that we would leave the European Union on the 29th of March. You have told the House it's now the 12th of April. But you have not changed your mind about ruling out a second referendum, unlike your Chancellor, who on Ridge yesterday effectively opened the door to it. Have you said anything to the Chancellor about this? Or has collective responsibility on your watch completely collapsed?
I think the Chancellor of the Exchequer made the point that this was one of the propositions. It is indeed one of the propositions that has been put forward. It's been referenced in questions already. It's been referenced by members across this House. But I assure my honourable friend that I have not changed my view about it. As I indicated earlier, I believe we should deliver on the result of the first referendum.